3, 2, 1.
Here we go!
All right. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the world's most exciting classroom. My name is Joe Grabowski, and I'll be your host for today. Now, this is a really exciting event today because this is our first world's most exciting classroom event geared towards classrooms in Australia, New Zealand, and the area surrounding. So we have been doing the world's most exciting classroom since August of last year in 2023. We have hosted, I think tomorrow will actually be our 59th world's most exciting classroom. But now that the ship, the Oosterschelde, is in New Zealand, we thought we would start doing some live events geared towards this side of the world. And we're going to continue these live events all the way from now through July in 2025, when the Oosterschelde returns back to the UK. So let's introduce the Darwin 200 a little bit, because I know this may be new to many groups who are joining us. The Darwin 200 is a 2-year-long journey following Charles Darwin's voyage of the Beagle. So we're traveling around the world, we're making stops all over the world, and we're doing 3 main things. One is research. We have amazing researchers joining us and undertaking projects like collecting eDNA from the water, looking at ocean plastics, doing coral transects. There's a lot of projects going on board the ship. The second thing we're doing is we are training young leaders we call Darwin leaders. So every port we visit, we have youth ages 18 to 25 fly out to the ship, usually 5 or 6 young conservationists. We pair them up with local conservation groups, and then they go out into the field, they learn new skills, they create videos, and we're going to meet one of those Darwin leaders tonight who is with us in the Galapagos. And the third thing is what we're doing right now, the world's most exciting classroom. So every week we have these live events, we have guest speakers, experiments, uplinks from the ship when we can, contests, curiosities of the week. It is pretty jam-packed, so let's get right into it. So I thought a good place to start would be to share my screen and visit the Darwin 200 website. So I'm going to make this a little bit bigger here for us. On the Darwin 200 website, darwin200.com, you will find this really cool interactive map. And this map shows where the ship is in real time, but it also shows where the Oosterschelde has been. And along the way, we post live pictures and videos as well. So you can see here where we left Plymouth in the United Kingdom. And then if I zoom out a little bit now, you can see the progress that we have made, making our way along the coast. You can see Cape Verde. We crossed the Atlantic Ocean. We spent time going all the way along the coast of South America, making stops all along the way, up the other coast before we launched off to the Galapagos. And then over the summer, the summer here in the Northern Hemisphere, we have been traveling across the Pacific Ocean. So a huge, vast expanse of ocean. You can see here at this angle, there's nothing but ocean here. We made our way all the way across, and currently the Oosterschelde is on the North Island of New Zealand. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit closer. And what's happening right now? Well, the ship is undergoing maintenance. You can imagine sailing across the ocean. Supplies would be few. Time and resources to do maintenance just wouldn't have been there. So that is what is going on right now. A few more weeks of maintenance before the Oosterschelde will set sail and make its way to Sydney, Australia. We'll have a huge series of events while we're in Sydney. Then Hobart in Tasmania, back to New Zealand, the South Island this time, and then we'll make our way across the Pacific. So that's all going to happen over the next few months leading up to the new year. Now, I think it would be pretty cool if we took a little look at the ship, the Oosterschelde. It's a beautiful, historic 3-masted schooner, over 100 years old. And this little video I want to share for you is a video of the ship leaving Plymouth to begin the 2-year journey. So let's take a look at this little video clip here together. right, so that is the Oosterschelde leaving Plymouth to begin a 2-year journey. We are now in New Zealand. It has been quite an amazing journey so far, and over the next few weeks and months, we'll play all kinds of little clips from some of our past adventures, and of course, we'll be doing live stuff from the ship, so you'll get to be a part of all of our new adventures coming up. So for those tuning in, don't be shy. Use the chat sidebar, use the comment section, the private chat to send in your questions as the event goes on, and we will work those questions in where we can. Now we're going to bring in our first guest speakers, and I can't think of a better group to be spending a little bit of time with. We are going to head to Indonesia, to a little island called Palu Muna, and we're going to meet Expedition Butang. But before we do, I have a map here that I want to share really quickly, just so you can get a feel for where we are going in the world. So I'm going to bring this map up front and center. I'm going to pick the right one. There we go. So I'm going to back out a little bit. So there's Australia down there. And if we zoom in to Indonesia, and oops, I think I lost the island when I zoomed out like that. So I might have to type in the name really quickly to get it to come back. There we go. Ha, perfect. So if we zoom in, this is where we are in the world. In Indonesia, and we're going to meet this team right now. So Expedition Butang, they are exploring and studying the aquifer and surrounding caves. It's an international team of cave divers, dry cavers, scientists, photographers, uniting with local authorities to map the cave system, assess water quality, collect eDNA, assess community needs, and document the beauty of this cave. Let's bring them in right now. There we go. Ranva and Maria, how are we doing?
Good. How are you? Nice to see you, Joe.
Yeah, so this is extra special to have Ranva and Maria here because they were both scientists on board the Oosterschelde from the Explorers Club. They did coral transects for us in very different parts of the world. One in Fernando de Noronha, a little island off Brazil. And then we had you joining us, Mangareva, and parts of Tahiti, Maria. It is so good to see the two of you.
Likewise, good to see you again, Joe. And what an amazing opportunity to be able to stand here in Indonesia, live streaming through DARWIN200. Thank you so much. It's so exciting. It's so hot here.
Yeah, I know. Exactly. So, so just a quick introduction of who we are as well. Like you said, we've both been on DARWIN200 ourselves. I actually managed to cross the Atlantic on the Oosterschelde, and I got to sail past the equator and got baptized by King Neptune as well. But beyond that, I am, as you said, a member of the Explorers Club, and Maria and I are the founders and project managers of Nixie Expeditions. And this is a project that we spent about 2.5 years setting up.
Yeah. So my name is Maria, and I was so fortunate to be on leg 18 where we were diving. I was diving in French Polynesia from the Oosterschelde in underneath pearl farms, collecting data on the coral reefs out there. It's absolutely incredible. And as a professional diver, I'm standing here as part of the scientific dive team. Ranva and I are collecting data in the cave. And we will be spending the next couple of DARWIN200 live streams telling you about this project and showing the details of it. But we have some team members here who's going to take over from us, explaining more in details what we're doing out here, because we're going to go diving inside the cave now.
So here.
Yes.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you? My name is Christine. I am what's called a science coordinator of Expedition Butang.
Yep.
And
And also, I'm Ida. I'm from Indonesia. I'm the scientist here to do some study for the extraordinary cave.
So we're really excited to be here because not only is this an expedition with divers exploring some of the unexplored parts of Earth,
Yep.
but we are coupling science with it,
Yep.
so it can go out to the community, and hopefully we learn something about like evolution history, species diversity, all that kind of cool stuff that nobody knows so far. So we're really excited.
Yep.
But what you see here behind us is the entrance to the cave. So in a few minutes, Ranva and Maria are gonna go down there And they're gonna take about 180 steps down. There's a little staircase, and then they're going to dive into the water, and it's like almost 4 kilometers in, so it's really exciting. Yes, but we can show a video of Ranva preparing for how to prepare for a dive.
All right, excellent. Give me 1 second here to load up the video, and then we'll see how she's preparing right now.
Okay. Buddy, can you give me a quick brief on what we're doing now on this dive?
So this is dive number 3 in Laulawi. So we're going back to each of the research stations or sampling stations, and this time we're going to be sampling fossils. So ideally a piece of coral and a piece of shell into our falcon tubes, and then we need to go back to station 4, which is the 4 stations we've installed so far, and then Robin is going to take us to a proper saltwater passage. We haven't found one yet, but he knows where there is one. Station 4 is brackish, and when we get to station 5 in the proper saltwater passage, that's where we're going to do 4 water samples, 3 for eDNA and 1 for biology. And then we are, no, for viral, right, metagenomics. And then we're doing a sediment sample, and we're doing fossils as well on station 5.
Yeah, so that was it's actually quite a bit that we are collecting, that we're sampling there. So, but just to show you also how the divers look when they need to go underwater, they are quite equipped with all kinds of stuff. We can show you a video of Natalie on the way to the cave. Yes. So Natalie is one of the divers that are going deep inside the cave. And you can see she's not a very tall person, but she's just heavily loaded with all kinds of
legs under that.
I know. You should see me in background at double. That's hysterical.
Oh, bless. Hello, yeah.
Yeah, awesome. And I can just turn around and then you can see everyone here. There you go. So we have divers preparing. We have a lot of people helping us as well. Getting the tanks ready, getting the tanks down. When you're diving, you're not supposed to do hard work, because then you are exposing yourself to decompression sicknesses. So we also have a picture of how it looks when they're in the water, down at the cave, and it's pretty cool. So you see, it's completely darkness down there.
It's totally dark.
Yeah, and the only light is the light that they bring themselves.
Yep.
But it lights up the water like a little swimming pool.
Yeah, like a swimming pool.
Yeah. I think we also have a video of when they're diving.
Yep, inside. They're diving inside the cave. And maybe we can see the video.
There you go.
Yep. The cave is totally submerged with the water and it's totally dark. They need lights to help them to see what's inside the cave. And you can see the ornament inside the cave. It's so different with the outside. And the water is sometimes clear, but it's mostly clear water inside.
And then they're lighting up. So the cave is like covered in stalagmites and it's covered in ancient fossilized corals. And they get to these different sections. So at one point they have to like squeeze in through a narrow hole, and the next point they have like this giant opening covered in the stalagmites and stalactites, and it's really amazing, and it's really worth conservation efforts.
And yes, besides diving in the cave, we also study the cave. We study about we study about the biology of the cave, also the geography, geology, also the hydrology. But before, maybe we see
Yeah.
okay, and then we can see the picture of me doing like some science project inside the cave. Yep. What I'm doing in the picture is I'm filtering the water because I want to know about the organism and animals that live inside the cave, since we so hard to know by our eyes. But only with the sample of the water, I will get the information of animals that live in the cave. That's so interesting, and so it's like a magical thing that I do, but it's like so interesting to study.
Yes.
Yes.
And we also have more team members on the science team. I think we have a video of your colleague.
Yep.
From
Yes.
University of Gajah Mada.
Yes.
Abdul.
Yes. And we can see the video.
Yes.
When we are doing our filtering. A bit dark, but still we can see like we are doing since we have to collect the DNA, so we need to very sterile, but that's okay in this field. That's okay, it's not too sterile. And then Christine helped me to prepare the equipment. Yes, we collect the water from the diver, and then the water, then I will filter, and then we get the information.
Exactly. And as you can see in the video, it's getting dark. It's because we have some really long days. So all the preparation takes time, and the dives takes time. They're really challenging to go inside the earth.
Yes.
To do this. So and obviously the science also takes time.
Yes.
But it's so funny when you are inside the cave, it's dark. Then when you come up, so you lose the sense of time actually when you're down there. And then when you come up, it's it's also dark. So
Yes.
yeah,
We don't know time. Time goes by. It's just in the cave.
Time goes by.
Yeah, and I guess when you're underwater in a cave, it doesn't matter if it's light outside. It's always going to be dark in the cave. So whether it's day or night, it doesn't matter if those days go long. But I imagine that the divers, the science team really enjoy their rest too in between the dives.
They do.
Yes, it's also a good teamwork between the divers, also the scientists, also the people here. We have a good teamwork.
Yes, yes, we do. So that's awesome. I think actually our divers are ready. Our science divers are ready to go.
Yeah.
So here you
said
have
something very important. Hello.
Hello.
You said something very important about the cooperation between us. I mean, we need each other out here. So our task is to dive in and collect stuff from the cave that the scientists are not able to go and get because it's a long journey under the ground, and we are specialized using this equipment to do so. But we will make sure that next week we'll come back with some videos of more details of the cave, because it has amazing fossils and beautiful decorations of crystal, and in general just a stunning cave, and there are creatures living down there, and we might catch some for next time. And of course, for the scientists to look into.
Yeah, and we're bringing a very special flag with us as well, which is the Exploring by the Seas of Your Pants flag. And that is coming diving with us today, and we'll have some pictures with it underground in the cave of Laulaui on Muna Island.
So cool. Well, listen, have a great dive. Before you go, I want to ask you a really quick question. We have some classrooms in Australia sending in questions. And the first question here that they'd like to know is, don't you find it scary going down into the dark cave?
Well, you want to answer that one?
You want to answer? I don't actually, because we bring so much light with us. We need to have backups of everything. So this is a big primary light, and then you have one backup light and then another backup light. So between us, we have 6 lights. So we will never run out of lights down there. So it's not scary. It's really exciting. And what you can see is something that very few people on the planet are able to see. It's like diving into the inner space of our planet. You feel like an astronaut without going into the center of the earth.
Yeah, absolutely. You get so mesmerized by these caves because they're ancient coral reef. Whilst you're diving through it, you constantly notice new things. Like I was saying before, fossils. There are perfect fossils of corals and giant clams down there.
That are
beautiful.
this big. Never
Beautiful.
seen anything like it anywhere in the world.
So every time we go underwater, we literally venture back in time, and it is thrilling and exciting. Of course, it also takes some concentration because we are underwater and we are underground, but good teamwork and lots of training, and then the experience is just absolutely amazing.
All right. I know it's hot, so I'm going to ask one more question from our students. How long do you think this dive is going to last?
Well, yesterday we did 3.5 hours. Today is a short dive, so we're gonna do about 2 hours today, I think. But with these rebreathers, as you can see, these are scrubbers here. We could do a little bit more of an equipment check or a run through next time we're filming if you find that interesting. But with rebreathers, we can be underwater a really, really long time because rebreathers recirculate the air. So they're very, very efficient in how you use gas.
Yeah.
So they can bring us safely a long way into the cave and back again.
So we're like little ninjas underwater because we have no bubbles. We just glide through the water, and it's super quiet down there. So we're gonna have about 2 hours today to look around.
All right. Well, have fun on the dive. Stay safe. We can't wait to hear how it went.
Thank you. See you next
See you
week.
next
Good
time.
week.
All right. Thanks, everyone. See ya.
Bye. Here we go.
All right. That was so cool. Thank you for sending in those great questions to our class joining us. I should give them a nice shout out in Narracourt Primary School. Thank you for those awesome questions, grade 3 and 4. Very, very cool. We're going to continue on with our event. So if you join us over the next coming weeks, you will get to see the team out there and learn about different parts of the expedition. We'll have some more dive videos, it sounds like. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Now, there's a few more things we need to do today. I said we're going to meet a Darwin leader. Her name's Duda, and we're going to meet her shortly. She sent us a great video from one of our past events. We're also going to look at an experiment. Now, our experiments are things that you can try in your classroom or at home. So what we do is we play the experiment, and then you have 2 weeks to try the experiment. Maybe you'll do it in the classroom. Maybe you'll do it at home. Take some pictures and send us some pictures, giving that experiment a try. And then we'll send prizes to some of the classrooms who send us pictures trying the experiments. So let's take a look at our first experiment. And then I'll explain a little bit more about how you can give it a try. So let's get the screen sharing here and let's take a look at our experiment.
Do you know what your bones are made out of? They're made of calcium carbonate, in common with animals right the way around the world, from birds to butterflies. Calcium carbonate is especially important for marine life because it's soluble, so it dissolves in water. That makes it very easy for marine organisms to absorb it into their bodies. So animals from crustaceans to mollusks to corals use it for their exoskeletons or their bones. Unfortunately, a big problem today is that the pollution that we're creating is increasing the acidity of the world's oceans. This is a problem because calcium carbonate reacts with acid, so it has an impact on the life that lives in the world's oceans. Today's experiment is going to explore that very subject. For this experiment, you need about 200 millilitres of white vinegar. This is available at supermarkets across the world. It's also known as acetic acid. It's used for cooking purposes. Your parents might have some at home in your kitchen, or maybe your teacher has got some in the science lab at your school. Be a little bit careful because this stings if you get it in your eyes, and it also doesn't taste very nice. So wash your hands after doing this experiment to make sure you don't get in contact with any of this vinegar. You also need about 200 millilitres of water. This can be seawater, rainwater, or tap water. The purpose of this is to use it as a control against the vinegar to check your results. You also need some seashells. Hopefully some of your classmates have been to the beach recently or on holiday and collected some shells that they can spare. Ask your teacher for some pH strips to test the acidity of the vinegar and the water. And then you also need some scales to measure the weight of the seashells before and after the experiment. Okay, let's get started. Step 1, measure the weight of a shell. This particular one here weighs 6.6 grams. So we'll put this in a beaker labeled vinegar. That's right, 6.6 grams on the front of it. If you want to, you can put in other shells, but just remember to make sure that you know which shell you've weighed. So I'm going to put in lots of little shells, which are different from that big one that we just weighed. Then just repeat the process for water. So let's put this shell in our beaker for water, and this one weighs 5.8 grams. So this is a little bit smaller. The difference doesn't matter at all. Let's put that one in here. We'll add a few small shells as well. Step 2, we've got to measure the pH of the two different liquids and see how acidic they are. So here's a little pH strip. Let's put it in the vinegar. Well, look, that's turned bright orange. If we then compare that against the pH color chart, look, we can see that's easily pH 4, even maybe getting towards pH 3. So it's very acidic. Let's repeat the process for the water. Oh, that hasn't changed colour at all. Let's compare that against the colour chart. Yep, that's pretty much neutral. That's about pH 7. So that's not very acidic. So we've got a good contrast between our two liquids. Step 3, it's time to do the experiment. So very carefully take your vinegar and pour it onto the shells. If you wait a couple of seconds, then look really carefully, you should see something happen. Then our control experiment, let's pour in the water and see what happens there. You then have to be really patient and leave the two beakers alone. But if you look very, very carefully, you'll see something is happening.
All right. Video. So you can see the results that Stuart McPherson, he's our expedition leader, had in the Darwin studio. In the meantime, we'd love for you to try that experiment in your classroom or at home, and then send us pictures to classroom@darwin200.com. So there's the link there, classroom@darwin200.com. If you need to replay this video, you can find it on the Darwin 200 YouTube channel, or you can send me an email to classroom@darwin200.com, and I can send you the video to watch again. So we would love to see your classrooms, your students give that experiment a try over the next 2 weeks, and then send us some photos, and we might just have a prize if you're one of the selected classrooms. Okay, you might hear some music in the background. That's because we have a Kahoot quiz. So one thing we like to do in the world's most exciting classroom is have a Kahoot quiz each week, and it's based on what we just learned about. So today it is going to be about the cave divers and what we talked about. So I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to tell you how a Kahoot quiz works in case this is your first time trying a Kahoot quiz. So you should see my screen pop up right about now. There we go. And if you want to join the Kahoot quiz, there's a few ways you can do it. One way is to go to kahoot.it. So that's the website, kahoot.it. And then it's going to ask you for a PIN number. Today's PIN is 398669. And if you put that in, you can choose a name and it'll bring you into the Kahoot quiz. Now, if classrooms have their own computers, maybe you have Chromebooks or tablets, students could do this at their desk. If not, no big deal. Your teacher could bring it up at the front of the room and you can shout out your answers to him or her and see how you do. So if classrooms are able to join the Kahoot today, great. If not, you can play live in your classroom, shout out the answers and see how you do. But for the future, just know that it's an option. You can join us, play the Kahoot. If you're joining from home, we have home classes joining us, homeschool classrooms. You can scan that QR code on your phone or a tablet and it'll bring you right into the quiz. So with the Kahoot quiz, there are 4 questions today, some true and false, some multiple choice. The faster you put in the right answer, the more points you're going to get. So faster you put in the answer, the more points you're going to get. So that is another piece of the world's most exciting classroom. We've met guest speakers, we had an experiment, and now we're going to play our Kahoot quiz. So it looks like we did have one group able to join us. So let's hop in, let's go live, and let's see how we do. So here we go. We're going to count in 3, 2, 1, and we are live. So your first question is, where is the dive team joining us from today? Are they in India? Are they in Australia? Are they in Indonesia? Or are they in Cambodia? So India, Australia, Indonesia, or Cambodia. All right, good job, crew. They are joining us from Indonesia today on a little island. Let's go to our next question. Here's our scoreboard. Our Glowing Yeti group is in first place. And we'll go to a true and false question. The rebreathers they're using in the cave make lots of bubbles. So the rebreathers that they're using on their backs, true or false, they make lots of bubbles. All right, that is false. Rebreathers are so cool. So when I go diving, I use regular scuba gear and it makes lots of bubbles. So I'm pretty used to that. But a rebreather takes the air you breathe out, it scrubs it clean of carbon dioxide and adds a little bit of oxygen. So it circulates the air over and over again, and you can stay underwater for 3, 4 hours or longer. Really cool pieces of equipment. If we go to our next question, it is true or false? Ranva and Maria both sailed on the Oosterschelde. Is that true or is that false? That Ranva and Maria both sailed on the Oosterschelde. Good job, crew. That's absolutely true. Ranva joined us in Fernando de Noronha, a little island off the coast of Brazil in the Atlantic Ocean, and Maria joined us in the Pacific Ocean, Mangareva and Papiti, so 2 islands in Tahiti. They both did diving with us, and they did coral transects. So they went along the coral, they took pictures, they measured it. In the future, divers can follow their route and see how the corals changed. Is it healthier? Is it less healthy? Has it undergone coral bleaching events? So lots of information they can learn from doing the coral transects. And our final question coming your way, how long was their last dive? So they told us how long their dive was yesterday. Was it 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, or 4 hours? How long was yesterday's dive? 1, 2, 3, or 4 hours? That's right. It was 3 hours. Today's dive might be more around 2 hours, but their last dive was 3 hours long. So there we go. Our classroom. Who joined us? Coming in first place on the podium, the Glowing Yeti. So if you send me a message to classroom@darwin200.com. I'll put that up on the screen again. Classroom@darwin200.com. Send me a message and I will have a little something for your classroom. So classroom@darwin200.com. All right, let us come back from that screen share and turn off the music. So another part of our project is our Darwin leaders. We are so proud of our Darwin leaders. They are amazing young conservationists. So they've already undertaken projects to try and better the places that they live. Some of them do tree planting projects. Some of them have their own little small conservation groups. Some of them are filmmakers, and we bring them out into the field with us. They get new training, they make videos, and then hopefully they go back to their home countries and they're future conservationists. They use the new skills and tools to help on future conservation projects in their local communities. So in this clip I'm going to share with you, we have Duda Mangesi joining us, and we first met her in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil when we visited. Then she joined us as a Darwin leader in the Galapagos. So she's going to share a little bit about the project she worked on in the Galapagos. So let's get this video loaded up and sharing on screen. And here we go. We're going to head to Brazil, where we have Duda Mangesi joining us. She is an incredible biologist. I had the pleasure of meeting her in person in Rio when the Darwin 200, when the Oosterschelde visited. And then she was a Darwin leader and was able to go and visit the Galapagos, one of the most incredible places on the planet. Let's get her in here with us live right now. Hey, Duda, how are ya?
Hi, Joe. I'm doing fine. Here, warm weather over here.
I can imagine. Yeah, it's probably coming into late spring, early summer for you right now.
Yeah, actually early spring, but
okay.
It feels like summer already.
Yeah, I can imagine. I remember sleeping on the ship and the weather was over 40 degrees. It was so hot below deck on the ship.
Yeah, you were here in November, so it was already like summer pretty much in. Now we are facing like a very dry year, so in the heat is very high as well. So even though we're still in October, it's already pretty high up, like the temperature.
Yeah. Well, Duda, I would love if you took a moment, just introduce yourself to the classrooms joining us today. Tell us a little bit about what you do.
So nice to meet you all. I'm Duda. I'm here in Brazil, in Rio de Janeiro. And I'm actually an environmental journalist. So I'm not really a biologist, although what I do sometimes look like, because I'm always like investigating stories regarding biodiversity and telling those stories to people. And that's pretty much my passion. I also work here with the golden lion tamarins in Rio, which are an amazing primate, very charismatic and cute. I don't know if you had the chance of seeing it. Otherwise, I recommend you Google it, golden lion tamarin. They are orange fur, and they're like pretty much, this size and long tail. They are amazing creatures, and I have the opportunity of working with them here in Rio, and also reporting biodiversity from across Brazil, which is one of the most biodiverse countries in the world. So pretty lucky.
Yeah, I had such an amazing time visiting the golden lion tamarins. We were really lucky and got to see some of them in the wild. Can you just maybe summarize that story briefly? Because they're endemic. They're only found in the part of the world that you are in. And their numbers were so low. So how low did the numbers get? And where are they now with really good conservation work?
Yeah, so in the 70s, the estimate was that there were less than 200 individuals of golden lion tamarins in the wild. And that was due mostly to deforestation. Rio de Janeiro is a part of Brazil that was like heavily occupied from the beginning of Brazil's colonization. So it was heavily deforested, and also wildlife trafficking, all that made the golden lion tamarin got to a really bad place, into like the brink of extinction pretty much. And that rose that sounded the alarm for the researchers that were studying the species back then. And then they started like an effort to try and save the species. And that's when like the conservation program for golden lion tamarin kind of started, although in a more informal way. And then on the 90s, the Golden Lion Tamarin Association was created exactly to coordinate that effort and made it more effective. And now we have 4,800 golden lion tamarins in the wild, according to our last census that was made last year. So that's like it's such a great story of how a conservation effort can be successful. Of course, we are still dealing with threats. The species is still threatened. It's classified as endangered. So we're not already free of the risk of extinction, but we are working for it, and it has been rewarding so far with all this recovery that the species had, and we're hoping to get even better results in the future, especially through restoration of forests, investing in connectivity, and also the awareness of people, so we can prevent wildlife trafficking and stuff like that.
All right. It is a great success story. Of course, there's more work to be done, but it just shows nature's resilient with some good conservation, a little bit of help. Good things can happen. So, Judah, you got to go to the Galapagos, which is pretty darn great place to be a Darwin 200 leader. We're going to play your video in just a moment, the first video, but can you give us maybe just a quick summary of the project you were working with?
So when people think of Galapagos, they often think of like the giant turtles, tortoise, the sea life, all that. But I actually got to work with a tiny scavenging beetle, less than 5 millimeters. And the interesting thing is that the researchers that are studying this tiny species, they are looking for what they believe could be the middle of an evolutionary process. So this tiny beetle that used to have functional wings is progressively, in some places, losing this ability. That's the hypothesis they're looking for. And I went with them to the field to join them in the search for those beetles, and they collected in different heights. This tiny beetle, I mean, Galapagos is an archipelago, and this tiny beetle only occurs in 2 of the islands. One is Isabella, which is the biggest one, and the other one is Fernandina, which is right next to it. And then they went there and they collect the insect in different heights to understand like if maybe there is an influence of like, okay, by the coast they're still with the functional wings, by higher altitudes where they have humid forests and more abundance of resources and less need of move big distance, they might not have functional wings anymore. So that's what they are studying, and that was what I went with them to the field to register this work.
All right, very cool. Let's take a look at the video together now, and then we'll take a couple questions. So this will load up here, and here we go. Should come up now.
There is no place in the world where Charles Darwin's legacy is more alive than the Galapagos. The archipelago, about 1,000 kilometers from the continent, was a living laboratory for the British naturalist during his voyage on the Beagle. Its 13 islands, each one with particular natural settings, allow Darwin to see how differences in the environment can benefit changes that end up creating new species looking for the best chance at survival. It's the living proof of natural selection and how species evolve into what they are today. Like the giant tortoises of Galapagos, that adapted according to the island features, like having a longer neck and different types of shell. But today, we are looking at a much smaller, yet also fantastic creature. Today, the evolution story takes us underneath the ground. This is the land of the scavenging beetle.
I'm Duda Menegassi, Darwin leader from Brazil, and I'm here to follow the scientists from Charles Darwin Research Station while they unfold this potential new chapter of evolutionary history.
In the whole Galapagos, there are about 400 species of beetles. Around 270 of them are endemic species, which means they can only be found in nature here. And they are very important pieces of these ecosystems.
Los escarabajos en general, pues es un grupo invisibilizado muchas veces, pero verdaderamente el rol que cumplen en los ecosistemas es muy importante. Desde el reciclaje de nutrientes, dependiendo del grupo de escarabajos. En este caso vamos a estudiar la familia Scarabaeidae. Esta familia, su ciclo de vida comprende netamente en el suelo. Entonces, uno de los servicios ecosistémicos más importantes es el reciclaje de nutrientes. Es decir, reincorpora los nutrientes o la materia orgánica que se encuentra en superficie al suelo, en donde se puede desarrollar mejores ecosistemas, mejor pasto, mejor bosque. Las semillas pueden tener acondicionamiento en donde pueden germinar mejor.
Today, we are looking for one specific species of scavenging beetle, known by science as Ataenus scarabagnoi.
With less than 5 millimeters, this beetle is smaller than a human nail.
This species, endemic to the Galapagos, can only be found in the Isabella and Fernandina Islands, and the researchers believe that the population here on Isabella might be losing its ability to fly. The reason? They just don't need it anymore.
Natural selection is incredibly simple, and there are really only 4 things you need to remember. Firstly, a population is what natural selection works on. It doesn't work on species, and it doesn't work on individuals. And a population is a group of individuals that are from the same species that form a breeding population. The second thing is that all species have variation. And you can see that amongst human populations. Some are tall, some are short, some have brown eyes, some have blonde hair. And that is variation. That's natural variation. We inherit that variation from our biological parents. So if you're incredibly tall, you're more than likely going to have incredibly tall offspring. And then the final thing is that in the wild, there's what we call a struggle for existence. And this means that not all living things survive long enough in order to have healthy offspring. So not all of them will survive. And if those individuals have characteristic that just gives them a very slight advantage over other individuals, then that characteristic may be what we call selected for within that population. And if it's really successful, that will become quite a dominant characteristic in the population.
Isabella Island has a big variety of landscapes. From the sea level by the beaches, where it's more arid and vegetation is more scarce, to the higher volcanoes that shape the island's mountainous scenery, and all the forests in between. In a place where the beetle finds everything they need within a close range, going far becomes just a waste of energy. And something as wings might become useless.
En la parte baja es donde se encuentran estos que tienen las alas de un tamaño normal, y en la parte alta vamos a encontrar quizás aquellos que tienen la reducción alar, ¿sí? Esta es una hipótesis, porque cuando tú vuelas, digamos que es una inversión de recursos para el insecto. Entonces, si estamos en un ambiente en donde no es beneficioso, digamos, el vuelo, o sea, el costo es muy alto, entonces lo que se cree, o sea, es una hipótesis, es que se van a reducir estas estructuras para ahorrar precisamente este costo energético.
To be able to make this research though, first we need to find some new specimens of those beetles that haven't been collected for more than 10 years. Join me in the next chapter of this adventure and follow the scientists as they go through the island in the search of this incredible insect.
Duda, thank you so much. One quick question. All right. So that video, Duda and I recorded that a couple days ago because right now in Brazil, it's the middle of the night. So she's sleeping right now, but she was able to record that video for us so that we could use it for today. But I do see there's a couple questions in the chat, and I am able to answer a few of those questions from having spent some time with Duda. And so the first question is, how long does it take to find scavenger beetles? Remember, they're very, very small, about 5 millimeters. So what Duda told me was that it took them a while to find them. They were able to put out some things like some old fruit, which helped attract the beetles. So that was one way that they could find them. But they were out in the field for the better part of a day looking for these beetles. And then the other tricky thing is you heard her say in the video, there's over 200 species of beetles found on the islands of the Galapagos. So sometimes it's a matter of finding the right beetle. You might find a few different species of beetles before you find the scavenger beetles that she was looking for. I see another question here asking about the favorite animal she's ever studied. And I'm pretty sure that would be the golden lion tamarin. So if you have a chance, do a little research today and search for a picture of the golden lion tamarin. They are a beautiful monkey in Brazil. And when I was in Rio de Janeiro with Oosterschelde, we went out into the field looking for them. And we found a whole group of them in the field in the wild. And they make little chirping sounds, almost like little birds. And they used to be highly endangered. There was only a few of them left. Before conservation efforts have boosted their numbers to almost 4,000 of them today. But there's still a long way to go, and they're endemic to Brazil. So that one part of Brazil in the Atlantic rainforest, they're not found anywhere else in the whole world. So just that one portion of Brazil in the Atlantic rainforest. So we're going to wrap up our event very shortly. If there's any last minute questions about the Darwin 200 expedition, I'll be able to answer them before we sign off. But we have one more special thing that we always do in our world's most exciting classroom events, and that is our Curiosity of the Week. So myself or our Darwin expedition leader, Stuart McPherson, will have a short clip of a mystery object, and you have 1 week to figure out what that object is and send in your answers to classroom@darwin200.com. So let's take a look at what this week's Curiosity of the Week is going to be.
This week's curiosity are these objects here. What do you think these might be? If you look very carefully, they're bands covered in hundreds and hundreds of little cowrie shells. There's got to be several hundred on each of these bands. They're not necklaces and they're not jewellery. Can you work out what these are? Join next week's World's Most Exciting Classroom to find out.
All right. So as you can see, there is lots of homework in the World's Most Exciting Classroom, but for doing that homework, there are sometimes prizes involved. So what are we thinking about? You have 2 weeks to try your experiment with the shells in your classroom or at home. Send in your pictures to classroom@darwin200.com. The Curiosity of the Week, you have 1 week to think about what that curiosity is and send your best guesses to classroom@darwin200.com. And then if you were the classroom, the winning classroom of our Kahoot, send me a message and we will get a prize to your class. All right. Well, this has been a jam-packed World's Most Exciting Classroom event. We will have another one at the same time next Thursday. We'll catch up with our divers in the field. We have another Darwin leader who's going to share their experience with us. We have another guest speaker joining us next week. They are joining us from New Zealand. Dan is joining us to talk about how they are trying to eradicate invasive predators in New Zealand and protect the birds and other native wildlife. So it is going to be busy. There'll be a new experiment. There'll be another curiosity. So we hope to see your classrooms joining us. A shout out to our group from NPS year 3-4. It was great to have you with us. We are going to sign off, but before we do, we have to say thank you to our partners, our supporters, our collaborators, without whom we wouldn't be sailing around the world, doing the world's most exciting classroom, doing research, training young conservationists. So that's how we're going to end our event today. We're going to say goodbye, and we're going to wrap up with a thank you to our sponsors. And I hope to see our groups and more joining us next week.